is starting in a few minutes. Like if you, just in case you have technical difficulties, they know, stay tuned or something.
It looks good, Brenda.
Okay.
Good, yeah. You have this screen up, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's good. That screen is.
Don't be knocking my connections. Just gonna mute myself here. Okay, for anyone who is checked in right now watching this, we're just going to give it about a few more minutes to see how many people can join in. So bear with me here. If you're watching, just go ahead and say hi in the chat just so we can see who's here. And it looks like people are slowly coming in, so we're just going to wait here for a few more minutes, see how many people join in. I got 6 watching now. If you guys can just say hi or hello in the chat, that'd be great just to get a head count. Hello, Heather. We'll be beginning in about 2 minutes now. Just, yeah, if everyone can say hi in the chat so we can know who's here, that'd be fantastic. So we just noticed a lot of people here are signed actually in with their, maybe even their personal account. So we can't really see whose name it is. So maybe if you want to just quickly state your first and last name in the chat so we can have an idea who's here. Okay, so we'll just be beginning shortly in about 1 minute. Okay, time's 11:35. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at the AirWatch webinar. My name is Brandon, and I'm with the Client Service Desk. I've been with the Client Service Desk for about 2 years now, and we're going to be starting this webinar as of right now. So I also have 2 agents here that are fielding the chat room for questions. So if at any point during the presentation you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat on the right-hand side. So before we begin, just want you to know that this webinar is recorded, and the link will be available at the end of the webinar using the same YouTube link that you're actually using right now. You may notice that there is, I guess I should pre-warn you that there's a 10-second delay between what I'm saying and by the time it makes it to your ears. So if you're asking a question in the chat, I may be about 10 seconds ahead of you, but if I do see it, I will try to answer it as quickly as possible. And of course, again, feel free to ask as many questions as you want in the chat as we go along. Also, one more thing before we begin. If you're noticing the quality is not up to par, you can actually change the quality settings in the bottom right hand corner here of YouTube. You'll see if you hover your mouse over the video, there's a little gear icon. If you click that gear icon, it'll bring up a menu with the options autoplay, speed, and quality. If you choose quality, you'll have more options here to expand on the quality. The top 2 being HD quality, 1080p, 720p will give you the clearest picture. Could be a little bit slower though, but just if you're noticing that some of the font may be hard to read, you may want to try adjusting it to 1080p or 720p. There is also in the bottom left-hand side, next to the pause button and the volume button, a little live icon or live button. If you see that the live icon or button is gray, it means that it's a little bit behind. If you click live, it'll turn red, and that's how you'll know you'll be on the livest possible feed, so you're more up to date. But you can backtrack through the video. So let's jump right in. The objectives of today's webinar is to familiarize the schools with AirWatch and managing iPads. So we're going to highlight the key benefits of AirWatch and also provide some real-world scenarios demonstrating how you'll be using AirWatch in your school. So what is AirWatch? Well, AirWatch is a mobile device management system / enterprise mobility management system. You can abbreviate them to MDM, EMM. It can be referred to as either. If you see me using one terminology one place and EMM in another, just note that they both refer to the same thing. And the concept is that it is a centralized environment for configuring and managing mobile devices. So AirWatch will allow you to easily manage mobile devices for your iPads from a single web-based application. It'll simplify the setup and management process for new and existing devices. Benefits. What are the benefits for the TDSB with AirWatch? Automatic TDSB wireless network access. So no longer on your iPads will you have to worry about what user account I'm going to use to sign into the Wi-Fi. They will automatically join our wireless network using a certificate, and it should be pretty seamless. As well as easy app installation for multiple iPads. So rather than rounding up all your iPads, going onto the App Store on each one, finding the app, downloading it, we're going to have a centralized place where we can push out a suite of apps to all our iPads in one single go. It also offers a consistent experience between iPads. You can have the same apps configured for your iPads. They'll have the same look and feel. You'll notice on any iPad enrolled in AirWatch that on the lock screen, you will have a Toronto District School Board logo and the blue background. There are built-in security policies, which are actually going to prevent students from adding or removing apps, applying passcodes to the device, which in turn has caused a lot of calls about iPads being locked or disabled because the iPads had a passcode on it. No one knew what the passcode was. You attempted to do your guess, and then the iPad locks. That's actually one of our #1 calls that we get here at the client service desk. So with AirWatch, students won't have the ability to enter in those passcodes. So that should save some headaches from having to wipe the device. Remote configuration and updates. Apps, updates, and all your configurations are actually going to be done over Wi-Fi now, all over wireless. So no need to take your iPad, plug it into a computer if we're using iTunes, or if you've had the privilege of using configurator too, you would know that that's a little bit complicated. So all this is going to be done over wireless and should be pretty seamless. And lastly, it will require removes the requirement for Apple IDs. So we won't have to remember what the Apple ID username and password is. You won't have to sign into every device using your Apple ID. All the apps will be pushed directly from AirWatch using no interaction between the App Store and your iPads. Also, I should note that all the apps that you did purchase using your Mobile G account in the previous years have been or should have been migrated over to AirWatch. And of course, if you don't see it when we get to there, you can please contact us at the client service desk and we can investigate that. So, who can log in? By default, principals all have just a quick question here. We used to share things via iCloud. How can we do that now? AirWatch doesn't really offer a solution as far as sharing things between iPads, but what you can do is push out the Google Drive app, and whenever you need to have something synchronized, you could share it using Google Drive. I hope that makes sense, because there's unlimited storage we have with Google Drive. With iCloud, I think we were capped out actually at 5 gigabytes of cloud space, so it wasn't really ideal anyways. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. We can touch more on that later. But for now, so who can log in AirWatch? As I said, principals by default have access to log into AirWatch, and then the principals can then in turn designate someone at their school as an AirWatch administrators. AirWatch administrators are granted access through LAS, which of course can be found on your desktop in the school shared folder. There's a hyperlink for LAS, otherwise known as the local administration system. And once they've added you into the AirWatch administrators group, it could take anywhere up to 12 to 24 hours for the administrator to have access to the console. You should receive an email notification when you do have access to the console, which will give you a good indication that you're probably ready to sign in at that point. So this demo will cover navigating the AirWatch console, so getting you familiar with the look and feel of the console, how it works. We're going to show you guys how to organize your iPads using smart groups, which is what the product AirWatch refers to as a logical way of grouping your iPads so that it's easier to push out apps or push out configurations to them. We're going to be going over adding and removing apps as well as web clips on your iPads. And of course, if we have time, we can show how to erase and restore the iPad. So, logging into the AirWatch console. You can log into AirWatch from anywhere on the web. It is a web-based application, so you don't have to do it just within the walls of the TDSB. There's no browser limitation. It doesn't matter whether you're using Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Safari. It should be able to log in regardless of which browser you choose. Now, there's an important detail when we sign in. We will be using our network employee number as well as our password, our network password. But there's an important thing to note that when you are typing in your username, it does need to be prefixed with the TDSB / then your employee number. So TDSB / that's the one above the enter key, not directly to the left of the shift key, employee number, and then your password. And when you do first sign on, it will ask you to create a 4-digit PIN. And that 4-digit PIN is essentially used for an additional security check before you perform certain actions. So, as an example, if you wanted to wipe a device, before you wipe a device, it asks you to type in your 4-digit PIN that you created on first login. That's just to prevent you from accidentally doing something like wiping a device. So they're more on the more aggressive, I guess you could say, actions that you can do on a device. Now, of course, if the PIN is forgotten, you can contact us. We will assist you in resetting your PIN. In the future, I believe there's a known issue right now what we have with the console, but in the future, you should be able to reset your PIN on your own. Now, the link for AirWatch is kind of a mouthful, cn239.awmdm.com. I have included a link in the description of the video, so if you look down below, you should see it's the second link is under AirWatch Login. So if you want to open up in a new tab or a new window and follow along, by all means, feel free to do so. And the link is right there. So with that, we're going to jump right now. I'm going to switch over to the AirWatch console, and we're going to begin our login. And I'm just gonna wait. If you guys want to give me a heads up if you're ready to go. I'm not sure if you guys are following along with the web console. So, when you are on the AirWatch console, you should see the two fields, username and password. And like I said earlier, we're going to type in first TDSB /. Now, the TDSB is not case sensitive. You can do it TDSB /. You can do TDSB lowercase /. As long as you have TDSB / and then your employee number, as well as your current network password. I gotta think of mine. What's mine? Oh. Pardon me. Type in your I thought about that. All right. So you type in your network password, and you should be able to log in. Give me 1 second here. I had to actually, funny enough, reset my password yesterday because I did a webinar where I typed in my password and everyone saw it. So bear with me here as I kind of go through my brain. Got it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that's it. So you click login, and the first screen you should see is the dashboard. Now, if this is the first time you're logging in, you probably actually don't see this. What you'll see is the accept terms of agreement. You can read it if you want. I'm not going to wait around for you, but feel free to just go ahead and click accept. And then this is where you'll probably be prompted, if this is the first time you're logging in, to create your 4-digit PIN. So choose a 4-digit PIN that's meaningful to you. Do not use your bank card. And whenever you're ready, click save. Did anyone here actually get prompted for their PIN, or is everyone here actually logged in before?
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so we got one person who's logged in before.
Just go ahead.
I'm going to assume that either someone's logged in before or probably by now, because there's a bit of a delay by the time you actually hear my voice that you actually had the chance to create your PIN. So, getting back to it, when you're first logged into the AirWatch console, you will be greeted with the dashboard. Now, I just want to highlight first, actually, before we get into the dashboard, the 3 primary icons here on the left-hand side. They both sort of pertain to exactly what they're referring to. So, for example, devices, if you're looking over here. Devices is obviously where all your devices are. Apps and books will be where your apps are. Groups and settings are where we would create our smart groups. So you can sort of see that as we navigate along that the different demos that we're going to go over that will be in the section that it refers to. So for now, we're going to start off on the default, which is devices, and then the dashboard. So the dashboard basically gives us a high-level overview of our school's AirWatch environment. It really contains statistical information regarding your AirWatch environment. So everything here is very graphical in nature. All the graphs are interactive. You can see when you hover over the graph that they change colors, and that basically means that you can actually click the graphic and it will tell you what it is it's referring to. So as an example, I'm just going to start here with no passcode. In my environment, which is a test school, we have 2 devices that are enrolled, 2 devices that have no passcode out of 3 devices. You can see up here in the total deployment it shows 3 devices. So 2 out of my 3 have no passcode, and that's what this chart reflects, so 67%. Some more useful statistics. Last seen breakdown is a good one. This will tell you that the last time your device was online and reported into AirWatch. So, for example, if you had devices that had not been seen in 31 days, that would suggest that maybe perhaps that device is locked away in a cupboard somewhere, or maybe it's unaccounted for, lost. But this could help you sort of get an idea of what's going on with your iPad. So, for example, I'll show you the nature of clicking the graph and taking you to the list. In this case, I have 2 devices that have been seen in the last 0 to 3 days. And you can see when I hover my mouse over it, it changes color. If I click that bar, it'll actually take me to a list of those 2 devices that it's referring to, that has last been seen in 0 to 3 days. So I'm going to do that now. If I click that graphic there, it'll take me over to list view, and it has automatically applied a filter showing that devices have last been seen in 0 to 3 days. And these are the 2 right here. So I'm just going to exit out of here and go back to the dashboard. But that's sort of the general idea of the dashboard, is that all these charts here are interactive, and when I click it, it'll show me exactly the devices it's referring to with those statistics. Another useful one actually is down here for operating system breakdown. So with Apple devices, it's usually best to be on the latest and greatest version of iOS. In this case, 10.1 is the latest, and I can see here that I have one device that's 9.2. So this might be good for taking action on a device, for example, that is 9.2 and maybe perhaps needs to be updated. Sorry, I just noticed that the video cut out for a second. Does anyone have any problems with the video? I haven't seen any complaints yet, so I'm just going to proceed along. So that is the dashboard. Again, just sort of gives you an overview of your current environment, how many devices do you have, and the different statistics that it breaks down for you regarding your devices. So we're going to switch over to list view. You already briefly saw list view when I clicked the chart there, which took me to list view with a filter applied. But we can actually just navigate over to list view just underneath the dashboard here. And what this will do is provide a list of our iPads that exist in our environment. In this case, I only have 3 iPads. But on this page, you can actually already see some summary information regarding your devices, such as last seen here. So, oh yeah, here we go. My video cut out for a few minutes. Pause for a minute, but seems to be back on. Yeah, network connection's a little bit flaky, I think. Of course, if at any point it cuts out and then comes back in, you can always, of course, go back and watch the video later. Once it's all done, it'll be there. But just for the sake of asking questions, obviously I want to have a good connection here. So, but we are watching the chat. So if you have any problems, just let me know. But getting back to it, list view. Again, on this page here, it shows some summary information regarding the devices. For example, last seen. So that shows you, as we mentioned earlier, when did the device last appear online, and when did it last report into AirWatch. It'll show you the friendly name of the iPad, and that's these sort of links here above. These are the names that we've given the iPad in AirWatch. It also shows you the operating system version. So I can see here 9.2. That was that device I was referring to. Oh, sorry, I clicked that. It'll show you the iPad model. So for example, this one here is an iPad 4th generation, 32 gigabyte black. And as well, there's a section here for enrolled, which will tell you that the device obviously is enrolled. It's talking to AirWatch, and it's fine. Now, if you wipe a device, you might see that when it's in that middle ground on the setup phase, that enrolled will show unenrolled. So, but just keep in mind that all devices here should technically show enrolled. So with that, we can see that that's the list of our iPads for our school. Sorry, we got a question here. Can we migrate existing device apps and info to this system, or do we need to refresh the iPad to get it online? So you're referring to, you guys had previously had apps, and now you want to maintain those apps that you've had from before and have them moved over into AirWatch? Is that what you're referring to? Okay, I'm gonna let our agent who's fielding the chat respond to that. So, but I'm just gonna move along here. So now that we're in list view and we can see our iPads, we can actually then delve into each iPad. So we can switch from list view to device view by clicking any one of these iPads. And what it'll do is it'll narrow our focus from a list of all our iPads to one individual iPad. This is the iPad that I have next to me, so I'm just going to use this one as an example. I'm going to click this guy. And what we should see is that it switches over to device view. So now I've gone from looking at a list of all my devices to just focusing on one individual iPad. And this is on the details view page. Sorry, I said device view. Details view page. And when you first come into the details view page, you'll be on the summary tab. Now the summary tab just sort of gives you, obviously as it implies, some summary information regarding this particular device. So for example, apps here shows that 4 out of 4 installed, which means I told this device I want it to have 4 apps to be installed, and out of those 4, it has all 4. We'll get into where that 4 comes from later when we create the actual smart group, which tells it which apps it needs. So these are, just keep in mind that these are the 4 apps that we have through AirWatch told it needs to have. Then there's some device info over here on the right hand side, just like we saw in the details view. It just sort of gives you some more information regarding this individual device, such as the serial number. We have the storage capacity, so how much space is available on the iPad. Available OS updates, so this will tell you if there is one available, and maybe you would want to push out the OS update through AirWatch. But that is generally the summary tab, just sort of giving you an idea of what it is that it's referring to for this device. The apps tab will show you that those 4 apps that it was referring to on the summary tab that are instructed to this device to have installed. As soon as that loads. So these are the 4 apps it was referring to. So somewhere in our AirWatch environment, we've told that it needs to have the agent, which is by default needs to have Google Drive, Outlook, and Sketch. So we can see here that with this green check mark that all 4 apps are indeed installed. It shows you the name of the apps. Take my word for it, what it does do is it takes your iPad from being in an active session and takes it to the lock screen of the device. Sorry about that. We'll see more cool demos in just a second. So next to lock is more actions. More actions will, as it implies, provide more actions that you can do for the device. I'm just going to highlight some of the key ones you may find yourself using. Edit device under admin here is one that you guys should be familiar with. Oh, my apologies. I think lost audio. I wonder how long the audio's been gone for. I think I accidentally clicked the mute button. Can you guys hear me now? Anything now? Still no audio? I think this is the delay here. My apologies. You should be hearing me shortly. See, now I'm not too sure. After showing the 4 apps, talking about where to find the serial number. That's where I left off?
The device section before the apps.
Okay. Beautiful. So it looks like you guys can hear me now. I'm not sure where it is that I left off. So did you guys catch the part where with the lock? All right. Well, I'm not entirely sure where it is that the audio cut out, so I'm just going to go back to lost audio and lock. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. All right, so I'll just go back a bit just to refresh, depending on whether or not the audio made it. But summary tab, as it implies, will show you summary information regarding the device, such as the model number, how much space is available. It'll show you the serial number down here. As well as the apps that it needs to be installed. So in this case, 4 out of 4. So I've told this iPad to have 4 apps installed, and out of those 4, 4 of them are installed. Some other important information: the battery life you can see here, the storage capacity, and whether or not there is an available iOS update, which will be indicated there. Let's switch back over to the Apps tab again. And this will show us a breakdown of those four apps that we have told this device to get based off of our configurations that are going to be applied later in smart groups. So out of those 4, Agent, Drive, Outlook, Sketch, all 4 of them are applied, and you can see that with this green check mark, which means they are installed. It shows you the name of the app, the version number, as well as the app size. In the top right-hand corner, this is where we will perform actions on this device. So again, we're focusing on one individual device, not our entire list. And with this one individual device, we can perform actions. The lock button will take the iPad from being in an active state. So let's say you have an app open, you're playing around with it, and then you click the lock button. It takes it right to the lock screen of the iPad. Now, by default, as I mentioned earlier, the iPads, you can't set a passcode without first logging into the agent, which unlocks a bunch of features that a student otherwise wouldn't be able to use. So if you don't have a passcode on your device, the lock button really all it does is it takes it to the splash screen, which I imagine most schools probably won't be putting locks or I guess passcodes on the device. So, but it is important to note that if you did want to set up a passcode on your device and you wanted to immediately send that device to the lock screen, that would be where you do it. So under more actions, going back to, I guess we're right about where the audio cut out. I'm just going to make sure that doesn't cut out again. Under admin, there is an option here for edit device, and the edit device button is, edit device action is very important in that it allows us to rename our iPad. So if I click edit device, it brings up the iPad with the option to set the friendly name, and that would be the name in which it appears in AirWatch. So as I mentioned, you would probably want to set the friendly name to something that is meaningful to your environment. So if you, for example, had an iPad with a cart, you would probably want to label that the friendly name that it belongs to cart 1, or maybe then you want to call it, maybe you have them labeled with a sticker that says this one's iPad 2, so iPad number 2. So that way, with this friendly name, when I'm looking at my AirWatch environment, that it's meaningful to me. I know I can tell which iPad this is based on the name that I see here. There is also another important flag here for set friendly name as device. This check mark here will take this name that you've chosen for it to have in AirWatch and push it over to the device. So I'm actually going to show you that now. So I'm going to leave this here before I hit save. I'm going to pull up my iPad. And I'm just going to show you that right now the name of the device is what it was when I first came in there. So right now it's library iPad number 3 dash cart 2. Now when I leave here, and I'm looking back here, so now I've changed to cart 1 dash iPad number 2, and I've selected this flag here to set the friendly name as the device name, and then I click save. What it's going to do is it's not only going to rename this device in AirWatch as cart 1 dash iPad number 2, but it's actually also going to take that name and push it over to the iPad. So right now we can see here before it was library iPad number 3 cart 2. As soon as this page refreshes, now the name of the device is cart 1 dash iPad number 2 in AirWatch. And if I go back to my iPad and I look at the name of the device, we can see here it already got that change. Cart 1 dash iPad number 2. So that's edit device name. Something you probably want to do for all your devices, because when they first come into AirWatch, they are going to have a very long cryptic name, which will be a combination of the iPad model and the asset number. So take the time with your iPads and go through them all and rename them appropriately in your AirWatch environment, so that when you're actually coming back here to look at them, they make sense to you. Going over more under more actions, there is clear passcode. Under here, under the clear passcode heading, you would use device. So for example, if I left the feature open, or I intentionally put passcodes on the device, or maybe I signed into the agent app on the device, handed it to a student, didn't sign out, and that student went ahead and put a passcode on the device anyways. With AirWatch, we won't have to wipe that device anymore. We can actually clear the passcode from AirWatch right here. So under more actions, clear. Can you prevent students from changing the name of the iPad? That is actually a good question. I don't believe so. No. Apparently there is a a way that we can restrict that, but it would have to be by request. So you would have to contact us at the client service desk, and we would have that restriction put in place. So getting back to clear passcode. So for example, if there was a passcode on the device, I could clear it. So if I forgot what the passcode was, I could come in here, and under clear passcode, if I click device, what it'll do is it'll actually remove the passcode from the device. So you can actually just jump right in all over again. There is also device wipe down here under management. So if for whatever reason you wanted to start fresh with your iPad, maybe you're having an app that's being a little bit problematic, or maybe the space is running full, and rather than going through all the photos that may have been taken on there and deleting them, you just wanted to start fresh. So from AirWatch, you can actually go to More Actions, Device Wipe, and it will, over wireless, send the device to be wiped. And this will actually be easier because right now, if you wanted to wipe your iPad, or I guess, sorry, prior to AirWatch, you'd have to plug it into iTunes, do this weird cryptic combination of the power button and the home button, and then use iTunes to do it. But now this is all taken care of all over the wireless by clicking that button. It'll queue it up and send it to the device and force it to wipe. iOS update. So in that right here, where's that? iOS update right there. So under management, iOS update. If we, for example, when we saw in the summary tab earlier, it says whether there's or not there's an available iOS update available for the device. We can actually force it or trigger it to actually do the update right now by doing this button for iOS update. Now I'm on the latest version here, so that won't really be anything I could show you. But if there was an available update, you could click that, and it would force that iPad to update right at that moment. Another one would be loss mode, that I think is a really good one. Enable loss mode will take your device and it will put it in a state where it needs to be returned. So what it will do is, if I enable loss mode, I can set a message on the device, like for example, I haven't seen this device in a while. Please return to Mr. Silva. And I could even provide a phone number. And when I send this, what it'll do is on the iPad, it'll make it almost technically unusable. It'll leave it on a splash screen that'll say, I haven't seen this device in a while. Please return to Mr. Silva. So if you have a device that may be unaccounted for in your school, or maybe somebody left it in a drawer somewhere and they forgot to return it, what you can do with this is enable loss mode and give a message of your choosing. And when someone actually picks up that device, ideally they'll see that message and return it to you, and you contact the phone number or any means like that. And then once the device is recovered, that enable lost mode will turn into disable lost mode, which will then give you the ability to start using it again. But when it's in lost mode, it's almost locked at the screen with that message. I demonstrate that, but the problem is that once I connect, you won't be able to see the message that's there, because I can only really connect when the device is unlocked. But that is one of the features of AirWatch, is if you do lose a device, you can enable lost mode and give a custom message of your choosing for it to be returned. So as far as devices go, that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, there's a lot of different options here. Feel free to play around with it, but the ones that I highlighted are probably the ones you're going to be using the most. Summary, and then the apps tab, as well as these actions up here for that individual device. So I'm going to go over now to apps and books. So again, at the beginning I showed you that there's the three primary icons here on the left hand side. We're currently under devices. We're going to switch over to apps and books. And automatically it will take us to applications, list view. And right away we're going to be greeted with this screen. And this screen contains a list of the entirety of AirWatch and all the apps that are loaded in it. Problem being is that this doesn't really pertain to us. So if I want to find out the apps that are added for my school, I first need to begin, once I come in here under list view, I need to search for my school name over here in the top right hand corner in this search list text box here. In my case, the school is called Test School. For you, you would type in the name of your school and then hit enter. And what it's going to do is it's going to filter out all the apps that apply to your school. So I can see here I have a few. Angry Birds, CP24. So these are all the apps that appear in my AirWatch environment. Now, very important to note, this doesn't mean that these are the apps that are being pushed out to the iPads. These are just the apps that are loaded in your AirWatch environment. So these are the apps that you have to work with. And how these apps get here are actually done through the submission of the app request form. There is a link for the app request form in the video description, which is essentially what you would fill out to get an app to appear here in AirWatch. And this would contain both free and paid apps. I'm seeing that one person saying that they can't see their apps. It may be possible that the AirWatch environment has not been loaded with the apps, which would be something that I think we would have to take away to our AirWatch administrators to see why that is. What school are you at? Is anyone else not able to see any apps after filtering out for their school? Okay, I'm going to have somebody here just quickly check out your Moorish organization group. So Gordon A. Brown as well, 1012. Interesting. Alright, so hang tight. What we're going to do is we have somebody here who's going to actually pop into your environment and see why the apps aren't there. It may be just because, in all honesty, this project is still in deployment phase. So what they're aiming to do is take the apps that were previously purchased, as well as including some free apps, and moving them into your environment. And the idea was, by the time you guys get to this webinar, that should have been done. I'm going to continue anyway, so you may not see your apps there, but the concept is that when you do come to the apps tab, that you will see a list of your apps here. And again, those are all appearing here as a result of me submitting my app request form. So even if it's a free app, you'll need to submit the app request form. And what happens is that they then take that app and they load it into your AirWatch environment, and then you can use it from there. So all these are brought up here by filtering out my school name up here. You can use your school Trillium number as well. For my test school here, it's 991. So either one will work. And on this page, again, it just shows you the name of the app, how many licenses are available for it, and how many devices in this little blue field here that it's currently applied to as a result of the smart groups, which we're going to demonstrate later on in this webinar. There are also, under this page, actually, I guess I should say, there's an important thing to note here. If you submitted your app request form and you don't see your app, and you got a response email telling you that the app has been processed and it should appear in your AirWatch environment, and you come in here and you still don't see it, it's very possible that you just need to press this Sync Assets button. So sometimes what this does is it forces AirWatch to update itself. Check to see if those apps are available for being pulled in here. So if you click the Sync Assets button after receiving an email, we have seen it more often than not that what will happen is that those apps then appear afterwards. I'm not sure if that'll work for your case, for all those that are saying in the chat you don't see any apps, but it is worth a try. Then there's the Web tab here. So the Purchased contains our apps. Web will contain our web clips. And what web clips are essentially shortcuts. They're like bookmarks for your iPad. So they appear to look just like an app on your iPad. The only difference being that rather than actually opening up an app, what it'll do is it'll open up your Safari browser to a particular web page of your choosing. So right now, I have two web clips that are already created in here. Now we're going to go back or later on, and we're going to deploy a web clip to device, as well as we're going to deploy some apps to the device. But for now, I just want to sort of highlight the navigation here. So right now, apps and books, we got our list of apps. We find that out by searching our Trillium number or our school name to bring up a list. Oh, sync assets worked. Interesting. Yeah. So for those who don't see their apps, give that a shot. You'll see next to under the Purchase tab, next to this button Add Order, that there's a Sync Assets button. If you press it, you'll get this little prompt button here, and just click OK, and you may see your apps appear after the page is refreshed. That same thing doesn't apply for web clips, so when you switch over to the web tab, you create your own web clips, so you're not going to have anything preloaded in here. And we'll demonstrate how to create a web clip and deploy it to device momentarily. But for now, I just wanted to familiarize everyone with devices being in the Device tab, apps and books being in the Apps and Books tab. We toggle between Purchased for our apps and Web for our web clips. I'm going to move on now down to Groups and Settings. And under here, we'll see Create and Manage Custom Named Groups. So click that, and it'll expand that. And we want to go to Assignment Groups. And Assignment Groups will contain both a combination of smart groups and organization groups. Don't worry so much about organization groups. They're basically just folders, and you're really only going to see the ones that are pre-created for your school. But what we want to draw your attention to is the smart groups. And the smart groups are how you will group your iPads into logical groups that are meaningful to you. So going off our first example, let's say I had all my iPads in a cart that was in the library, and I wanted all my my entire iPad cart in the library to have the same apps on them. We would create a smart group that would have all those devices in that smart group. So that way, when I go to push an app, rather than pushing it to each individual device, I push it to the group, and then the entire group will get that app. So here's a list of all our smart groups. We're actually going to jump right in and create a smart group now. So up here at the top, we'll see a button that says Add Smart Group. If you click Add Smart Group, a window should appear. Now right away, it's going to take you to a page that says Select Criteria under Choose Type. We're not going to be using the Select Criteria, because how the select criteria works is it works based off of values regarding the device. So if I wanted to say group all my iPads that are on a certain version of iOS, or I guess the Apple operating system for the iPad, this group would apply based on all the devices that have that. So more often than not, I think what you're going to find is schools want to actually manually choose which devices go into the group. And how we do that is under Choose Type. Instead of Select Criteria, we're going to switch over to Select Devices and Users. And in here now we can manually choose which devices we want to belong to this smart group. First, actually, we probably want to give the smart group a name. So in the top right-hand corner, you see this blank name field. This is where we call the name. So give it a meaningful name. In this case, I'm going to go with my example that I'm working with here, and this will be my library iPads. So that's the name of my smart group. Now I want to add my devices into the library iPad smart group. We do that over here on the left-hand side under Devices. There's a blank text box here, and when I click it, what's going to happen is it's going to bring up a drop-down menu of all the devices in my environment. Now this is why I mentioned earlier, when we're editing the device to rename it, this is where it's helpful to have given it a friendly name. I can see here that I have one that has the serial number of the device, and that might not mean anything to me. I'm not sure what that serial number is. If that is that in the cart, I don't know. But the device that I did rename, I can see here Cart 1, iPad 2. If that means something to me, I'll know that that's what I want to belong into my library iPads group. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that one. So I select it. Now it's in the field here, and to move it over into the devices, right here, devices and smart group, we click the Add button, and we'll see it goes from the left to the right. You can do this multiple times, so every time I click back here, it'll show me that list again. If you have an idea of what you have your devices named, you can actually start typing it out and it'll filter it out as you're typing. So let's say I had more iPads that were named Cart 1, and let's say it was iPad 2, 3, 4, 5. I could begin typing iPad Cart 1, and then what it'll do is it'll show me all the ones that begin with that. I hope that makes sense. So once we've added it in, sorry, I removed it. Let's try that one more time. So there's the iPad. I select it, click Add, and it moves over here under Devices and Smart Group. So now this iPad will belong to our library iPad Smart Group. And all we need to do is click Save. You know what? I can't name it that because the Smart Group name already exists in this organization group. Should have cleaned that up before I started this webinar. Let's give it something else. Maybe it's not in the library. It's in the Computer Lab. Computer Lab. So now my Smart Group's called Computer Lab. I've taken my iPad. I've moved it over into the group. And when I click Save, I now have a new Smart Group here called Computer Lab. And we can see that by the group type being a Smart Group. And assignment 0 because we haven't done anything with it. And devices 1. So we have one device in there. So it gives us an overview of our Smart Group makeup. We can already see what devices are in it. And this is where you'll add and create your Smart Groups. So now we want to go ahead and apply an app to this Smart Group. And how we do that is just at the beginning, like I mentioned, we're going to switch over to apps because now we're working with an app. So apps and books over here on the left-hand side. We're under here under our list view. We're on the purchase tab. So here's a list of all our apps. Now, of course, these aren't all our apps because we haven't filtered out our school group. So top right-hand corner under the search text bar, we're going to type in our school name. Test school for me, something else for you. And it'll filter out my apps. So now I want to take one of these apps and I want to apply it to that Smart Group that I just created. How I will do that is first I'll figure out which app it is that I want. Let's do Go for Dash. And how I'll do that, so I want to apply Go for Dash and .robots to my Smart Group. There's a button over here on the right-hand side that looks like a pencil writing on a clipboard. We're going to click Edit Assignment, which is that button there. And what that'll do is it'll bring up this window here, and this is where we will apply it to a Smart Group. I'm actually going to clear this out because this is from a previous one. My apologies. So this is the window you'll see when you click Edit Assignment, and this is where we're going to assign it. Now I must warn you before we continue. Right now it shows this message here: application enabled for device-based assignment. Blah 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 blah. What you may see here is a button that says Enable Device Assignment. In this case, it's already been pressed here, so you can't see it. But I'm actually going to switch out here and just show you an example of what I'm referring to. Google Sheets, I haven't pressed it yet. So I'm looking at Google Sheets. I click Edit Assignment. And I see a button here. It says Enable Device Assignment. That button is actually very important to press if you see that Enable Device Assignment. You only have to press it once. Once you press it for that particular app, it's done. It won't bother you again. But that Enable Device Assignment button, essentially what it does is it forces the app so that it doesn't need the Apple ID. And that's why it's important, because with AirWatch, we're trying to move away from the Apple ID. So by triggering this, we can push it out with AirWatch, no problem. If we don't press this button, you'll actually have the app screaming, saying, sign in with an Apple ID, sign in with an Apple ID. So very important that you press this button. I'm going to leave it here just for the sake of demonstrating in the future. And I'm going to switch back to my Go for Dash and .robots app. Again, I click Edit Assignment. And because the button has been previously pressed, this is the message I see. And that's what we want to see, that the application is enabled for device-based assignment. Just very important to note. Ignore that I just did. So this is what you'll generally see. This is an app that is unassigned to a group. I mean, actually it was assigned. I don't know if you saw me, but I quickly unassigned it. But what you'll probably see if this is the first time you're logging in, the first time you're deploying an app, is that the app has not been assigned to a Smart Group. So we did create a Smart Group earlier, and we're going to go ahead and with that iPad in that Smart Group, add this app to it. And how we do that is we hover our mouse over Add Assignment By. And a little drop-down menu appears that says License Codes by Smart Group. When I click this text box will appear. And this text box says Select a Smart Group. When I click in this text box field, it'll actually bring up a list of all the smart groups that I've created before. In this case, I created Computer Lab. That's the one there. And now I've basically told this app that it will be pushed out to the Computer Lab smart group. And even over here on the right hand side, it actually shows you some information regarding the smart group for Computer Lab. In this case, it knows that it only has one device. But there's one field we actually need to fill out before we push it out, and that's the allocated field. And this allocated field is how we tell AirWatch how many copies of this particular app are we going to allow this group, this smart group, to have. In this case, I only have one device in the smart group, so I really only need to give this smart group one license. However, if down the road I want to add more iPads to that smart group, so let's say my Computer Lab now went from 1 iPad to 10 iPads. I just got them in. In order so that I don't have to come back in here and change this allocated value to now reflect that I have 10 iPads as opposed to 1, you want to overshoot this allocated value, especially with free apps. And actually really only overshoot with free apps. So you'll notice on the left-hand side here under licenses that we have 500 licenses available of this app available to our school. And we did that. We shot for a very high number like 500 so that you wouldn't have to worry about how many you allocate to a smart group. In this case, I have one device for now, but maybe down the road I might get 10 more. I would probably want to accommodate my future needs. So because I have 500 and we don't even have 500 iPads, I might want to give it something higher like 20. And as long as you don't run out of those 500 licenses, and even if you do, you can always contact us. But the idea is that you want to have a healthy, sizable number of allocated licenses so that in the future, if you do expand that smart group, you can actually just go in and add the new devices to that smart group and not have to worry about going into each individual one of these apps and changing the allocation of the device licenses. I hope that makes sense, but that is a little important detail, especially if you have a device that needs to be replaced or you get new devices. So always swing high on the allocated. With purchased apps, it's a little bit different because you only get a certain amount of licenses based on what you purchase. So if this was a purchased app, we probably wouldn't see this 500 licenses here. What we would see would be probably 20 or ever how many that it is that you purchased. And in that case, you would probably want it so that which of your iPads are going to have those 20. So you don't have that wiggle room with the allocated licenses. But with free apps, go ahead and throw a high number in there. Keep in mind that it caps out at 500. And you can see actually when I changed that value here for allocated to 20, it actually took off my 500 total licenses that I have, took those 20 away, and now we have 480 left. We're probably never going to use those 480, and that's going to be the case for all your free apps. But very important detail there. So I've added in my smart group. I've allocated 20 licenses for the smart group. And I'm going to scroll down here. There's some more things we need to trigger. And the assignment type. The assignment type is going to be set to auto by default. You have the option of changing it to auto on demand. The difference between auto and on demand is auto, it will automatically push out that app right away from the moment I click save. The other option is on demand, and on demand will put it in the catalog. The catalog, I guess, let me just show you what that means if you haven't actually seen an iPad that has AirWatch on it. There's two components here. Hope you can see the iPad. If I switch over here, so we got our agent, which is in the bottom left-hand corner right here. And then right above that is the catalog right here. And that catalog, if I click it, it'll open up a web page and it will provide a list of the apps. Now this is going to include the mandatory apps. So if you recall earlier, I said this iPad needs 4 apps. And it's showing that all 4 of those apps are already installed. If I go back to my AirWatch and I change that value to on demand, rather than pushing it to the iPad right away, what it's going to do is it's going to show up here in this console. And instead of showing installed, it's going to say install, giving the user the option to install it. So think of it as on demand being optional, an optional app that they may want, or an auto being forced, in that I want it to be pushed right away to the iPad. I'm just going to leave here. So I'm going to leave it as auto because in more cases than not, you're probably going to want that app there. No ifs, ands, or buts, or give them options. So I'm going to leave it as auto. We want to make sure that you can leave this value blank, actually remove on unenroll. That just means that if I were to unenroll the device, it'll take the app off. These devices are technically unenrollable. They'll always be sort of forced back into the AirWatch environment. And this value, you don't want to touch either the make app MDM manage if user installed. Leave that checked off. It'll be checked off by default, and we want it to stay that way. And that just gives AirWatch the ability to control that app. So just be mindful of that. So now that we have that all set, we got our smart group. We're going to push it to the computer lab for our one iPad that we have here. We gave it 20 licenses so that in the future, if I get more devices, I won't need to worry about that. I've set it to auto. It's going to push right away. And we can go ahead and click save. And what should happen is on my iPad, it should begin pushing out that app. Now keep in mind, this could take a while depending on the network speed or your network connectivity. Or let's say you had a whole room of iPads going all at once. It may be a little bit slow to appear because you may be saturating the network with, trying to push an app to 20 devices at a given time. Right now I don't see it. So far in all our demonstrations, it's been good. Just be mindful that the app is queued up and it's ready to install, and when it does show up here, I'm actually going to pop back in so you can see it. But I'm just going to move on for now just because of time. So that's apps. We've pushed out the app to our iPad. It will make its way down there shortly, and I'll be sure to show you that. Now we're going to push a web clip over to the device. And a web clip, as I stated earlier, is just a shortcut to a web page. I already have two created here. I'm going to create another one. So I'm going to click Add Application here. It's going to come up here. It's going to say Organization Group ID. Leave that blank. It's going to automatically have your school. For platform, you're going to choose Apple iOS, because this is going to apply to an iPad. Click Continue. Now we're going to give our web clip a name. I'm going to call this one ServiceIT. And I'm going to provide a link to the ServiceIT webpage. You can copy and paste that value in here if you have a long name or a particular bookmark that you want. Don't need to give a description. You're not really going to see it anywhere. We're going to switch over from details to images, and this is going to be the icon. So this is how it's actually going to appear on the iPad. So you might want to actually give it a very friendly icon so that when you see it on the iPad, it just doesn't say ServiceIT. It'll show you an icon that sort of reflects that. I already have the picture here that I've saved from before. I'm going to select that one. So this is what it's going to look like on our iPad for the icon. It's going to say TDSBIT. And lastly, we go over to assignment. And it's going to ask us to assign it to a group. And this is that group that we created earlier. Just like in other parts of AirWatch, when I click this field, it brings up a drop-down menu of either of my devices. In this case, it's bringing up a drop-down menu of my smart group. And I'm going to choose the computer lab one that I created here. So it's going to make it over to my iPad. After I've clicked that, you'll see that it actually pops up another text box. So you can choose multiple groups at a given time. So every time you click that field, it gives you the drop-down menu, and you can select more. And you can just, I'm going to close out of that, but that's the idea, is that you can push it to multiple groups at a given time. We're going to choose the push mode as on demand, just like in our other example when we were pushing out apps. The two options are on demand and auto, on demand being the catalog, auto being forcefully. I just realized I accidentally said we're going to choose on demand. We're actually going to choose auto because I want to show you that it'll actually make it over to the device. So I'm going to select auto. And auto is going to actually make this push directly over to the device the second I click Save and Publish. I expand Advanced down here, right here. So that shows there's some more things that we need to set here. Removable, yes or no. Do I want this web clip to be removed by somebody who's using the device? You're probably going to want to choose no. So when you tap and hold an icon on the iPad and they all shake and they have the little X in the corner, if I choose removable no, it won't have the ability to remove that app. And then there's full screen, yes or no. We're going to leave full screen as no. So now that I have my web clip all set up, I want to link to ServiceIT, and I have my icon set. I'm going to click Save and Publish. And I'm just going to fire over to my iPad here. And actually, what happened is that app that I created earlier, it finally made it to the device. And what should happen in due time is that that web clip should make it to the device as well. Again, this is all related to your network speed, your wireless connectivity, and you know what your network quality is at that given moment. So it might not be right away, but eventually it will make it over to the device. Let's go switch back here. Oh, you know what? It actually didn't push because I didn't click the publish button. So let me just pop back over to that iPad and you'll see it should make its way there. There it is. So Go being the app that I created, and ServiceIT being the web clip that I created. And just as I said, if I click ServiceIT, it's going to open up the browser to the link of the page that I have there. Obviously it wants me to sign in. We're not going to bother with that. But that's the general idea. You can push your apps, you can push your web clips. So that is us deploying the apps. That is us deploying the web clips. How do I remove the apps? So the same way that we add the apps, we're actually going to remove the app as well. So we go back into our apps tab here. We're under here under purchased. Again, filter by our school name in the top right hand corner, test school. And now I no longer have a need for that Go app, and I want it to be removed. So this is the app that I pushed to my device earlier. If I want to remove the app from a device, or I guess a set of devices, you actually have to just go back into that app's profile here under Edit Assignment. And where we previously had added our smart group, where we see right here under Computer Lab and Test School, I'm actually just going to click this little blue X over here. And what that'll do is that'll actually remove the app. So it says here in the warning message, deleting the assignment will uninstall the application from all devices. So by removing this assignment that the smart group needs this app, it's actually going to now revert it. It's going to take those apps away. So I've clicked that blue X, I've acknowledged that OK prompt, and I click Save. And when the iPad checks in, that app Go should disappear. Again, just like the same with installing an app, it's the same thing with uninstalling an app, and it's all permitting, it's all surrounding the network speed or the network quality at the given time. I don't see the change here on my iPad, so I'm not going to show you, but eventually you would do that. I did say that if there was time I would show how to wipe a device. I think we were just running a little bit late here, but the idea is, I believe I showed you earlier, when you go to Devices, List View, you would find your device, in this case my Cart 1 iPad 2. And under More Actions, I would choose Device Wipe. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where our 4-digit PIN comes in. So this is where I would type in my 4-digit PIN, and this is to prevent me from accidentally having deleted this device. So if I type in my PIN number here, it takes my PIN, says, okay, this is what you want to do, and then it wipes my device. Now I can't show you because right now it's on the actual Apple loading wheel, but that would be how you go about wiping a device. So for support, we do have an MDM page. Again, mobile device management. It's on ServiceIT. If you actually go to the ServiceIT webpage, it should be right there in the middle. Bear with me here. So it's serviceit.tdsb.on.ca. Right here in the middle, we got a little banner here for mobile device management. If we click Learn More, this little orange icon here, it's going to take us to our AirWatch support page. It's got loads of information there. There's a PDF that sort of walks through just about everything that I've showed you today. Oh, sorry, let me just click that. It's got PDFs that'll have instructions on how to do everything that I've done today. There's some frequently asked questions, which actually goes, a lot of them lot of detail in here that you'll find that may already been answered if you're having some problems on the FAQ site there. And there's going to be some videos. Oh, the videos are already up. So we have videos. We're going to have this webinar, which is recorded, and you can go back and view it later, as well as some PDF documentation on how to work with these in your school. And of course, if for whatever reason you have some anomaly, feel free to contact us, 416-395-4357, option 5 at the client service desk, and we will be able to help you with that. So I know it's a little bit late, but does anyone have any questions? Is there a way to lock or remove pre-installed apps such as Settings, iTunes Store, so students can't access it? So by default, actually, I wish I didn't wipe my iPad so I could demonstrate this for you, but there is the option to remove some of those pre-installed apps, but they've been locked down by our AirWatch administrator, so we don't really have the ability to do it. But there are the iTunes Store and the App Store, I believe, are both already not available. So the only way that you can have the App Store appear is by signing in to the agent. I'm not sure if that applies to the iTunes Store as well. I don't know. Is anyone aware of that? I'll take that back. We're gonna write that down, and we'll reach out to our AirWatch administrators to see if you have a special request of something you would like removed. And let us know, and we'll see if that's something that's possible. But yeah, I can see how you probably wouldn't want them to go into settings and modify things there. Are there any other questions? If you got any questions, feel free to fire them away in the chat. Still got 8 people watching here. I'm just going to give you guys a moment to, if you're typing it out. Oh, you're welcome. Actually, thank you guys for attending. I appreciate it. If you do have any feedback, please let us know. This is the first webinar that we've done. We intend to do more, and we would like as much feedback as possible. We're going to send you guys a form at the end of this webinar that you can provide your feedback on. And if you have anything that you think should be added or anything that should be clarified, please, by all means, let us know, and we'll be sure to include that in future webinars. Is there an easy way to ask for many apps when we get started? That is a good question. So our app request form, as of right now, I put it in the link of the video here. Let me just grab that. Oops. Bear with me here. The app request form, as of right now, I believe allows for 3 apps at a time. We have been told that they do plan on... I'm not signed in. Yeah, so as of right now, I believe there's 3 apps that get submitted with the form at a time. They plan on expanding that so it's infinite, as well as making some other changes, like if it's a free app, you don't have to type in your general ledger number or anything like that. The idea is though that majority all your paid apps should already be there. They intended on moving over some free apps, so you might see some free apps in there. If anything's missing, it needs to be submitted on the app request form, and there are improvements coming to that. But right now, I believe it's 3 at a time. So if you can think of any and all apps that you can think of, just submit that form over and over again until they appear in your AirWatch environment. You should receive an email when that happens. Hope that answers your question. I'm going to assume that the radio silence means that there are no more questions. So, once again, thank you very much for attending the webinar. You will receive a link regarding feedback. Please let us know. Feel free to be as harsh as possible. We aim to improve this as much as possible so that, so we can request many apps but not necessarily add them to the iPads. No. So when you request an app through the app request form, you get a notification telling you that the app has been added. And what added means is that it'll appear in your AirWatch environment. So if I'm under here and I go to apps and books, and then it takes me to the purchased tab, and then I search my school, this is what it's referring to when it says that, or when you submit the app request form. What it'll do is it'll appear here in your list of apps, which from there you can add them to your iPads through the use of the smart group. So for example, if I submitted an app request form for CP24 and then I got an email notification telling me that it's been processed, what that means is now when I come into my AirWatch environment, I should see it listed here just like I'm seeing this one listed here right now. And of course, like I mentioned also, if for whatever reason you don't see it, but you got that notification telling you that it should be there, you would click this Sync Assets button, which will force a refresh for your school's list. And then, of course, when you want to apply the app, so now I have the app available for the actual deployment, to actually apply it and send it off to an iPad, we do that through the smart groups by clicking the Edit Assignment button, and then choosing the smart group that contains, right here, choosing the smart group that contains the list of iPads that we want it deployed to. So first, we group our iPads into a smart group, and then we apply our apps to the smart group so that they all get that app, or they're all queued up to get that app. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Just going to give a moment. Okay, I got a thank you there. I got a thank you from Heather. Last call for questions. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you do have any more questions, feel free to contact us at the client service desk. I'm probably here. They'll transfer right to me, and I'll be able to answer your question for you. And everyone here will be able to answer your question for you. So just please contact us if you do have any other questions. Again, this webinar is recorded. You will have access to view this afterwards, so you can go back and look at it, as well as there's much documentation on the ServiceIT MDM site. So thank you very much for joining me, and I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day and afternoon. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.